Hello, welcome to an e-demo of the Victor Default Workspace. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take a brief tour of the Victor Default Workspace and default layout. So first of all, what I'm going to do is just double click the Victor Unified Client desktop icon to launch Victor, and depending on how your administrator has set your system up, you may or may not be required to sign in to Victor. If you are required to sign in, you're going to see a sign in box like this one. So let's take a look then at what this contains. First option is the authentication method, and there's two options in there: Windows and basic authentication, and your administrator will let you know which you need to sign in as. I'm going to choose Windows, then I'm going to go down to the username field, and then I'm going to go down to the password field. Underneath that we have this Victor Application Servers drop down. In here we can choose which Victor application server we want to sign into. I'm just going to choose the one I have there, and then I'm going to choose OK to sign in. Whenever I've signed in, I'm presented with the default Victor layout. Let's take a look then at what this default layout contains. I'm going to start in the upper left hand corner, and there's two buttons up there. We have a logout button and we have a switch operator button. The difference between these two buttons is that the logout button will immediately log you out. The switch operator button will not log you out until another operator signs in. Next to those two buttons we have a drop down menu. If I expand that out, you'll see we have a couple of options in there. First option will move those two buttons underneath the ribbon bar, you can see, and then I can move them above it again. And the second option in that drop down is the minimize the ribbon option. It's selected by default. If I just unselect that option, you'll see that the ribbon bar maximizes, and I can go up again and minimize it if I want to do that as well. Okay, so let's move down then to the ribbon bar itself. We're going to start with this Victor logo button here on the left hand side. If I select that, you'll see there are a few options in there. Firstly, we can change the language of the system. We can access the About page, which will give us information on the version of Victor which we're running, and it'll also allow us to check with our application server manually if there are any software updates to Victor Client that we can install. Moving down, you're going to get some training videos, you're going to get your local support information, and then also you can exit the application from that menu as well. We'll just close this menu. We can go ahead and take a look at the ribbon bar. And the ribbon bar contains three tabs. We have a Home tab, we have a Build tab, and we have a Setup tab. If I expand out the Home tab, you'll see in there that the Home tab mostly contains options which will be relevant to a user. So it's things like opening up a map, running a search and retrieve, or running a report. If we go over to the Build tab, this contains configuration for non-hardware objects. We can configure collabs, we can configure operators and roles, or we can create new maps. And then the final tab on the ribbon bar is the Setup tab, and this contains your hardware setup. So you can add a recorder, or you can take a look at your doors or your personnel records. So if I just exit out of the ribbon, see, if I go all the way over to the right hand side, we have this Help button. If I select that, that's going to open up the Victor Unified Client Help. And there's two sections to this. There's an Administrator Help and there is an Operator Help. If I just close out of this then, we'll move back across to the left hand side of the interface where we have the device list. And this device list will default to an all devices view, and it will show you all of the devices which are in your system. The device list also has some categories down the left hand side. This top option is the one we're looking at now, which is the all devices. We also have workstations, we have recorders, and we have cameras, and you'll actually get another category for any devices which you have added to your system. So if you have unification with Secure and you have doors in there, you'll see a door button there, and you'll be able to filter your device list by that category. If we move down to the bottom of the device list then, we've got some tabs. So we have the option to open up the sites list and the call-ups list, and also the clips list as well. Okay, so moving over to the right hand side then of the default interface, we have the surveillance pane, and this defaults to a 2x2 layout, and we can just start then to stream some video into there. We can also change the layout. If we select this option here, you can see there are a number of layouts which we can choose, and I can just select which one I want. We can also create our own custom layouts, and they will appear in that list as well. Okay, so let's move down then to the very bottom of the screen, and we have the Victor Unified Client status bar. If I go from left to right then, On the very far left hand side we have this alerts, and it'll show any active events which we have in the event viewer. If I double click that, it's going to go ahead and open up the event viewer. Next we have the name of the Victor application server we're connected to. We have any messages from the client there. Moving over to the right hand side, we have the current operator which we're signed in as. We have the current layout which we are viewing, which is default in this case. We then have our bandwidth configuration, and I can actually select that and I can choose to limit my bandwidth based on any of these settings. We then have, if we have any virtual matrix active, we will see the name of that virtual matrix there. Otherwise, which we don't at the moment, you'll see inactive. We then have some stats on the current workstation, so you can see CPU, memory usage, and the space free on the C drive. And finally we have the current date and time.